All right, what's up? What's up? What's up? So today's book that I'll be going over is The African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality by Cheikh Anta Diop. So this is right here, the book that I'm going over. All right. So what's interesting about this book is that for me, struck my curiosity and made me want to look more into it was the word civilization basically. like I couldn't help but just think like, okay, what is a civilization? Because there's so many different uh definitions, and it's not just academically definitions either. There are definitions from people that I interact with on social media. Unlike most people, I try to comment and talk to everybody that is on social media that I possibly can, because of the simple fact that everybody does their own due diligence. Everyone does their own type of research. And because not one person can read every single book, peer reviewed article, know every single YouTube video, and so on and so forth, you have to work with individuals, uh, other people that are in the same field or subject that you're interested in, whether you like that person or not. One thing that I always say, and this is how I know that people are so emotionally involved in what they believe rather than finding the truth, is because for social media, first of all, everybody's there to get some kind of monetization because it's thrown in your face every single day. So everybody starts commenting and commenting, and everybody just says things. Some people put out, misleading information because they, see how many impressions and so on and so forth other people got. So they'll share that same link and won't do their due diligence behind that. And why I say this is important is because social media is very important when it comes to sharing this type of stuff. There's not that many television shows that talk about these different range of subjects. It's pretty much the same stuff over and over again, or rehashed as the same thing over and over again. So social media is used as a way, as just basically sharing knowledge to people. And what I've noticed is that even though you dislike somebody, you still have to not follow them, but have some kind of uh, cordial relationship with them if you want the truth, because people dislike each other for all kinds of reasons on social media. The biggest one is if you don't agree with somebody's narrative. And then for me, it's hard to agree with one narrative because I read so much. I literally have a series on my YouTube channel, what I've learned from reading this book, and I give my thoughts and ideas and what all this stuff that I've learned from it. But that is one of the main reasons why, for me personally, I just go to the actual books. So when somebody says Afrocentric, or somebody downs me and says, "Oh, you just reading an African book," well, I know what is said in my schools, which was usually ran by European Caucasian individuals. And yes, I'm from Germany. I was born in Germany, and my mother's European. So, I just want to make sure people understand that. But I also have to read what you know people who are other than Europeans say, meaning that I just basically want to know everybody's story. And in this case, I got this book right here, and I read it, and I was very interested because it says the African origin of civilization. So I actually, like I said, I talked to a couple of people on social media already, and I get everybody, different civilizations, and I've been doing this for a while now. So this is a new. So this dude, I'm sure it's a dude, Rubate. He's on X, and I asked him what is his idea of what a civilization, what could be considered a civilization. And he says the definition differs from account to account, even official narratives, and I suspect that is a deliberate coping mechanism. For myself, I define civilization as the moment when a distinct group of people reach a level of organization that enables them to, one, feed themselves to a level of excess, to construct for themselves residencies, defensive fortifications, religious centers, and civil offices, structures that have obvious defined roles. Three, organize themselves into distinct purpose groups: army, farmer, government, scribe, etc. And then four, record their own history, either orally or through written script. So that last one is pretty interesting to me because through orally or written script, that's very easy, you know. But that has to be on there. And then Dr. David Miano, who's also on X, says depends on what meaning you want to convey. But here are some possibilities. So these, when somebody says possibilities to me, all that means to me is that this is not an agreed term. So, this dude might possibly say it, and this dude possibly might not say it, and this dude over here might say it possibly, and this dude over here possibly looking at them like they crazy. So, yeah, possibly anything. So when I hear that word possibilities, I'm just like, all right, now I just got to take that with a grain of salt. I understand what you're saying, but let's back that up with some evidence, right? And he actually says, here we go. Here are the possibilities: agricultural society, scenery, society, domesticated society, tribal society, village society, developed society, urban culture, complex chiefdom, complex state, stratified society, regional polity, metallurgical society, low complexity technological culture, multi-component technological culture. And then somebody immediately says, yo, you realize that anything you would describe as a society, state, or polity in the first place is about as close to the accepted definition of civilization as you can get. And then question mark. So everybody has these, and this is just different individuals that's on X, right? I have actually wrote an article on it, and I didn't bring it up, but I should have brought it up before we started. But I actually wrote an article, or I want to say it was an article or something that had to do with civilization, and I put down what Oxford says about it, and to I think it was probably my first article too. To me, civilization, I'm to me it just, I can add things so much as I hear what I would probably consider, but to me, it's just I don't even know what to consider a civilization because I hear so many different ideas. The Oxford thing that I was talking about on my website, it's under my first article actually on Sumerians, the first civilization. It says, according to, and this is what I wrote, according to Oxford University, a civilization is a stage of social development identified by the formation of organized communities and permanent settlements with oral written records and history, traditions, religious faiths, laws, shared values, customs, beliefs, and artistic achievements. And I'm going to bring that up right now because I want to show you where it's at. So let me make it big. Oh, dang, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to do that. Hold up. How do I get out of this? Oh, man. Here, I'm just going to have to close that window down somehow. There we go. So let's go back to it. So this is my article that I wrote. And where is it? Yeah, right here. I don't know how to make this bigger because I don't know how to get my thing on there, but it's already on there. It's under my first article. I'll figure it out as we're talking. But what's interesting to me is that this idea of a civilization is very argumentative among a lot of people. I'm not sure why. It's pretty interesting because you have different ideas what a civilization is. To speak on it because, like I said, we got Gobekli Tepe, And then people say, well, that couldn't have been done by hunters and gatherers. And then you got the idea of Atlantis, which starts a whole nother thing. And then you just got, and not even for that, it's just you got millions of years before this that, what I mean, can't we add on to and just not take away? Like, can we add that, okay, we started talking, so orally traditional stories for one, right? Okay, then that means that's basically a part of a civilization. And then you're like, okay, let's start trading, and then you add that. That's the part two, and then let's have a guard. Because let's have like some kind of guards or army or something. That's number three. And then you just keep adding on to the list of criteria that's needed to a civilization because it has to keep growing, right? We can't stay stagnant. So let me see, look. You can see, I got like I always do. I always have a lot of tabs on it, and these tabs are just basically is just everything that I found that's interesting. Like, not to say like uh it's the important stuff, because it's not, you know what I mean? This is the stuff that I found interesting. So that's why I say we have to work together to put our puzzle pieces together to see what kind of picture we want to see. But mainly, this is like, if everybody that's watching right now and myself, we read this book, we're going to have different things that we're going to find interesting. Like, some of it is just maybe just words. A lot of it is, sometimes of it I have to read the whole entire chapter, and of course I can't do that, so I just can only give my review of it. And I think this is a very good book, because a lot of people would say, oh, you read these books and you're Afrocentric, and I'm just like, no, first of all, this information comes from people who are from Europe. You know what I'm saying? I always talk about Godfrey Higgins, right? And Albert Pike. So those are two individuals and Albert Churchwood. Those are people that gave out so much information that people, sometimes it's almost blinding to some people. But it's just, okay, how else are you going to learn about Africa if you don't learn it from the African people? You know what I mean? So you got two of the best worlds right here. You got somebody who's actually African, or somebody who grew up in the African culture, or somebody that's around Africans. Not just, I'm not talking about this person in specific, but I'm talking about anybody that writes books specifically that are African American or African, or so on and so forth. You get that culture, that side of it, and then you also get the side that was taught by the Europeans, right? So you get in both worlds. You get, okay, this is what this person said, because I'm telling you, these books, this information that's in here that they quote to, literally, I promise you, they come from what's up, Lost? They literally come from, they quote their European counterparts that are saying, hey, this is what this says, so this is what we're going to take what they said, what they found scientifically, and so on and so forth, and we'll tell them, here's the traditional oral story that relates to that. So it's just you got to be careful with um what is important and what's not. um okay, so this is something that I talk a lot about. This is actually in chapter 1. What were the giants, or what were the Egyptians? I'm sorry. And it says that the paragraph I found interesting was, finally, concerning the population of India, Herodotus distinguishes between the Padians and the other Indians, describing them as follows: they all also have the same tint of skin which approaches that of the Ethiopians. So what he's saying is that those individuals look just like the Ethiopians. So that's why when people say African or black, is because the they're using, in the Greek times, the same tint of the skin. I mean, if you want, just look up what indigenous Ethiopians look like, and you'll see what they would look like. Uh, and I say it again, finally, concerning the population of India, Herodotus distinguishes between the Padians and other Indians, describing them as follows: they all also have the same tint of skin which approaches that of the Ethiopians. So that's why um, some people would say they had there was Ethiopia described in India also. I've read that also, where it wasn't just Africa, it was in India also. I mean, it was because of the skin, the color of the skin of the people that was there. Here's another tab that I found interesting, and it's about Herodotus again. And I'm gonna be going over all his books because I have all his books that are available to the general public. It says Herodotus was not a credulous historian who recorded everything without checking. He knew how to weigh things. When he relates an opinion that he does not share, he always takes care to note his disagreement, thus referring to the Moors of the Scythians and Nurians. He writes appropriates the latter. It seems that these people are conjurers, for both the Scythians and Greeks who dwell in Scythia say that every Nurian once a year becomes a wolf for a few days, at the end of which time he is restored to his proper shape. Not that I believe this, but they constantly affirm it to be true and are even ready to back up their assertion with a note. And okay, now this is why I marked this, and this is perfect timing because I am actually writing an article right now that is based off the book of Enoch, actually, that's always describing certain groups of people as some type of animals. And I know that I've had a lot of discussions with a lot of people. And there's one of the questions always comes up is why are these people known as, the alligator gods or something like that? And then it's actually a perfect rhyming reason for it. So that's why I actually tabbed this up. And that's interesting that this is perfect timing that I'm going over this book because I'm reading right here, becomes a wolf for a few days. Now, I was just reading that under the book of Enoch, Joseph Lumpkin, I believe that's the one who did the book of Enoch, the version that I have. He says something about the Egypts being known as the wolves. And I think it starts like on page 115, if I'm not mistaken. Chapter, oh man, I can't even remember now, like chapter 85 or something like that. But like, yeah, it's I was just reading that. So now after I get off here, I'm gonna go to my article and type this in there and do some research on this behind that and see what I can find, because it's very interesting about how and why animals are always portrayed for a certain group of people. And it's very interesting that you can find it in the Bible and many ancient texts going back to the Sumerians, to the Mesoamericans and the Egyptians, and even the Inuit. Here we go. Here's another tab. The problem of the most monstrous falsification in the history of humanity by modern historians could not have been posed better than Volney did. No one could have been abler than he to render justice to the black race by recognizing its role as mankind's pioneer guide on the road of civilization. His conclusions should have ruled out the subsequent invention of a hypothetical white pharaonic race that allegedly imported Egyptian civilization from Asia at the start of the historical period. In fact, that hypothesis is difficult to reconcile with the reality of the Sphinx, which is the image of a pharaoh having the head of a black. See, I think that's why I marked that. I don't get that. So when I look at it, that's just my personal opinion. That image is there for all to see. It can hardly be discounted as a typical document, not relegated to the storeroom of a museum to remove it from the dangerous meditation of those susceptible of accepting factual evidence. And the reason why I say I don't agree with that is because I actually did an article on this too. I can't remember what it was called though, but it's on there. I think it's like race complexities or something like that. I can't remember. Anyway, the word black seems to always hit people differently. And it's only because it's always looked at as a negative thing to see with somebody's eyes. And I gotta say, Um, you know, there's different. How can I say this? So there are Dominican people that are darker than me, or just as dark as me, and they don't consider themselves black. Okay, but they have the same skin tone. When my research with black means anything from light brown to dark brown. Okay, and that's just through my basic research. That is light brown to dark brown, and that there's Puerto Ricans that look like me. I'm not Puerto Rican. I have a I talk about what I just found out a little later because it's just something that I'm still trying to figure out what is. But I don't. I for as right now as I really don't know. I don't know if I have any Hispanic in me or if not. I don't have none that actually says it in my DNA because I did it in my DNA test. But I do have some. I think some. I can't even remember like some Caribbean in me or something like that. But anyway, light brown to dark brown is what typically is black, and then but you got Haitians that don't consider themselves black as a sense as black Americans. Of course they're Haitians. You have Mexicans that are, I mean, when I was in Iraq and Afghanistan, there was individuals that looked like me especially when I had shorter hair, and I was just told the other day because I was riding in my truck and I was backing in, and I like to play my music a little loud. And I always wear my cowboy hat because it's my little signature trademark. And the I got out, and this one dude said, "Man, I ain't never seen a black cowboy." So depending on where I'm at and how um, people perceive me with their eyes, they say different things. I've been mistaken to be Hispanic, but I'm black. So if that can happen when I'm young and I'm understanding that, then the word black will trigger a lot of things, and that's why I disagree with him saying the pharaoh having the head of a black, because that just it just throws me off. The next tab is as far as the dark red race is concerned, we shall see that it is simply a subgroup of the black race as presented on the monuments of that time. In reality, there is no dark red race, only three well defined races exist: the white, the black, and the yellow. The so called intermediate races probably results solely from crossbeing. So he's saying white, black, and the yellow. So I'm assuming yellow is the Asian people, but uh, that that's when you get into isn't parts of it. It's just that the wording right there. I think it's just outdated to me personally. Um, the next tab is let's see because I can't read that. Okay, let's see. Uh, I'm trying to see where it starts at. Okay, I guess it starts all the way up here. Okay, yeah. All right. The variations I observed fully convinced me that they had tried to represent here the inhabitants of the four corners of the earth. According to the Egyptian system, namely the inhabitants of Egypt, which by itself form one part of the world, inhabitants of Africa proper, blacks, Asians, finally, and I am ashamed to say, since our race is the last and the most savage in the series, Europeans who, in those remote epochs, frankly did not cut to find a figure in the world. In the category, we must include all blondes and white skinned people living not only in Europe but Asia as well, their starting point. Okay, so he's saying their starting point. All right. So you heard it from him. That's what he actually says in his book. And then it goes into more what I like to do is I like to strike people's curiosity of what people say in their books and read it, because if you just go off of what I say, I'm told you I'm only giving you what I found interesting. And you know, it, I'm gonna I always after I do these, I always go back and I sit back and I go back and read all these tabs really slowly and the chapters and everything just to get a refresher. And I spend all day doing it. I just spend all day going through these tabs. So all day I'm going to go through each one of these tabs just to refresh my memory so that way I can say, well, he actually said this. Did you know this? And that way when I have these conversations with people, I can at the minimum, just say, hey, look, check it. I don't know if you know this or not, but this is what it is. And like I said, I don't always agree with everything everybody says. Just because I read their book doesn't mean I agree with them. I just want to know what they said so that way I can get the best understanding. So that way I'm not going off of he say she say. I'm going straight to the horse's mouth that said it, not to some random person that has some kind of agenda that they want to portray. Uh, the let's see, let's I'm trying to get to the next tab, but these last few tabs have me reading the whole chapter. Um, like here's one that I would have to read the whole chapter on. It says, "Could Egyptian civilization be of Asian origin?" So, uh, and it just gives you all these little, like I have the whole tabs is up on the top, so it's telling me that's where I need to start for my whole chapter. Yeah, there's a lot, man, and that's why I like this book because there's a lot of information in this book. Uh, okay, here we go. Here's a tab, and this is an interesting one too. It says, anticipating the agreement of all logical minds, I call Negro a human being whose skin is black, especially when he has frizzy hair. All who accept this definition will recognize that according to Herodotus, who saw the Egyptians as plainly as the reader is now seeing this book's, circumcision is of Egyptian and Ethiopian origin, and the Egyptians and Ethiopians were none other than Negroes inhabiting different regions. So that's pretty interesting. That that's how they determine, you know, um, all this criteria that's needed to be somebody that's Egyptian or Ethiopian, and that they were Negroes. Um, that's interesting to me that that's another definition. So a Negro is a human being whose skin is black, especially when he has frizzy hair. So that's what a Negro is. So um, there you go. Use that definition and use your arguments now. Now you don't have to worry about arguing. You could just say, hey, this is what this man says, and then you can't be wrong. Let me see, what chapter was that on? That was on. Oh, that's on page 136 of this book of African origin of civilization. Yeah, 136. It's the second. It's the first paragraph on that page because it's a run-on sentence. All right, so here we go. Here's another one. The oneness of each Egyptian and black culture could not be settled. Oh, hold on. Yeah, there we go. The oneness of Egyptian and black culture could not be stated more clearly because of this essential identity of genius, culture, and race. Today, all Negroes can legitimately trace their culture to ancient Egypt and build a modern culture on that foundation. A dynamic modern contact with Egyptian antiquity would enable blacks to discover increasingly each day the intimate relationship between all blacks of the continent and the Mother Nile Valley. Now, this is what's interesting to me because he uses the words black. And I get confused because, from what I understand, in Africa, they don't look at each other as black. They look at each other as a tribe. Um, and not all of them have the same shade of skin. The Coetian people, they have lighter skin tones, and some of them have dark, but some of them, a lot of them, what they show on at least on mainstream is that they have lighter skin tones, and those are the ones that have that look more have more facial features for Asians. So that's interesting. And then you have the people in more what's it yeah, Morocco, Africa, where they're light skin, where some of them are very light skin, a lot of them are. So not all of them. That's why I say for uh just for simplicity, black to me, from what I understand, is light brown to dark brown. Now you can be um a black Hispanic, or you can be a white Hispanic. I've seen that. Or you can be I've never seen well see this is see that's gonna start too much. I ain't trying to get into that right now. Here we go. What is the origin of Negro matriarchy? We do not know the certain we don't know for certain at the present time. However, current opinion holds that the matriarchal system is related to farming. If agriculture was discovered by women as a sometimes thought, if it be true that they were the I got flip page first to think of selecting nourishments herbs by the very fact that they remained at home while the men engaged in more dangerous activities, burning warfare, etc. This, along with matriarchy, would explain an important but almost unnoticed aspect of African life. Women is the mistress of the home in the economic sense of the word. All right, so this is interesting because um, basically women are the founders of agriculture, and of course, just uh, by his research alone, he's going to say it started in Africa, and most people will say that it started in Africa academically. At least there are arguments of others places. But what's interesting is that there are a couple of bones. The I think it's the lig. I can't remember. It starts with the L. Linguini bone or Liguin bone or something like that. It's and then there's also some ostrich shell eggs out there, and it's got the bone I believe has the I think they tied it to the moon, the phases of the moon, and it went off of like menstrual cycles and stuff like that. So, and that's through mathematics. I always said that from my research, from what I've learned, mathematics was initially natural through women. That's something naturally that they could do naturally. They had a cycle that was accurate and it would line up with others. So um, just to know that it was about agriculture also. Um, yeah, because you got to start paying attention to the moon and cycles and stuff like that. So that means they might have been the first ones to understand. No, that it's not no might have, because they had to look at the moon to do the bone. But they had to know how. I'm pretty sure they looked at the skies enough to understand the other planets and how they moved and stuff. So that's just interesting that this can goes through a whole nother way of thinking. But the next tab is Egyptians themselves, who should surely be better qualified than anyone to speak of their origin, recognize without ambiguity that their ancestors came from Nubia and the heart of Africa, the land of the Amam, a land of the ancestors, man, ancestor, and Wolof. The whole territory of Kush, south of Egypt, was called land of the gods by the Egyptians. Other facts, such as the tornadoes and torrential rains mentions on the pyramid of Unas, makes one think of the tropics, i.e., the heart of Africa, as Milianu observes. Significantly, excavations in the area of ancient Ethiopia reveal documents worthy of the name only in Nubia proper, not in modern Ethiopia. In reality, it is in Nubia that we find pyramids similar to those in Egypt, underground temples, and Masoretic writing, not yet deciphered, but closely related to Egyptian writing. So this is just interesting because that means it had to be some type of hieroglyph then, right? And you don't hear too much stuff about people talking about Nubia or any of the other areas. It's very very shocking because there's a lot of hidden history in there too. But you know, they dig too much in there, they might find things older than what they found before, and then you know how people get when they with their pride and egos. They'll be quick in a heartbeat to want to dismiss it. So in all the lands there were already Negro civilizations when the Indo-Europeans arrived as rough nomads during the second millennium. All right, so let me read the first part. It says the civilization attributed to them are inevitably located in the heart of the Negro countries in the southern part of the northern hemisphere: Egypt, Arabia, Phoenicia, Mesopotamia, Elam, and India. Then another tab, the question which then comes to mind is why did so many creative aptitudes appear only when there was contact with blacks, never in the origin of the cradle of Eurasian steeps? Why did those populations not create civilizations at home before migrating? See, that's the thing I don't understand. I'm sure they did. So I just don't like how that was worded. It depends on what you consider a civilization. Um, you know, like I said, it's everybody's going to argue that, and people want to say. I've heard people say that Atlantis was an advanced civilization, right? And some people say it's in Africa. Some people say it's in Spain, near Cadiz. I've heard some people say it's in the Azores. I've also heard some people say it was the Americas itself, America, North America, and that also heard about Antarctica and Egypt, but Egypt is also Africa. So yeah, two places in Africa that is considered uh, Atlantis to some people. And I always ask, what did the Atlanteans have that was so advanced that other people didn't have? And I got so many different ideas. One was being able to sail their boats. Uh, you got to be able to look at the sky and calculate things and be able to avoid storms to be a great sailor, I guess. Then you have terraforming, being able to manipulate the land to better your, I guess, your living conditions. And then another one was megalithic structures like building pyramids and monuments and stuff like that. And the pyramids in Giza is, a great indicator of that. But like I said, everybody has their own definition of what a civilization is. And I read two from X, and I just gave some more on there. And I've actually had uh, podcast discussions with somebody from that believes it's in Egypt, somebody that believes it's in Cadiz, somebody that believes it's in the Richak structure. Um, and I've actually did one with somebody that believes with two guys that believe it's Antarctica. So like I said, I have these ideas and I understand. Um, but now it just comes down to what they believe is a civilization, and everybody will have their own ideas. As long as all those people that have their own ideas, if they can come to the middle and be like, yeah, I can understand this civilization, or what about this, then they'll have to keep adding stuff. So that means it will have to fit their criteria, even if you already have the 30-page list. They got 35, and you only got these 5 extra ones that they have, then yours ain't considered a civilization. And it's just going to keep going on and on. But next tab, if modern civilization should disappear today, but leave the libraries untouched, survivors could open almost any book and perceive immediately that the persons living south of the Sahara are called blacks. The term black Africa will suffice to indicate the habitat of the black race. Nothing similar is found in Egyptian texts. Whenever the Egyptians use the word black, Kim, it is to designate themselves or their country. Kemet, land of the blacks. So yeah, that's very interesting that I learned something in there. It's just that from what I understand now, uh, the word black. See, I've read that they don't describe themselves as blacks. I mean, I've seen people in comments from different parts of Africa actually say, no, we don't usually do that as by tribe. It's starting. It is changing to that more. I guess more modern wise because of more of the migrations and changes and things. But they said that their ancestors, it was all by um their I guess you could say their tribes. So that's interesting. So we almost done with these tabs. A lot of it is pictures. Um so I can't show all those, of course. Okay, here's a this is an interesting tab because it talks about the religion of the Yorubas. Um I actually learned about the Yoruba because I found out about my Nigerian background when I did my DNA. And this was what's interesting that I found in here. It says Ra survives among the Yoruba with the Egyptian name Ra Ra Luke. Okay, and it says Ra Ra Ra, and then it says Lucas cites the word Irawo Irawo, which designates the star that accompanies the rising sun. This word starts with a vowel prefix, a typical of Yoruba and essentially a phonetic language, according to the author. We would say, like all African languages. Its other components are Ra, the Egyptian word, and Wo, to rise. Lucas suggests that Ra Ra, meaning not at all in Yoruba, indicates that they formerly swore by this god. So the Yoruba have a relationship with the Egyptians, or they have a similarity of some sort, or at bare minimum, in some ways, believe in Yoruba, now in Egyptian. Now this is interesting because I just opened up the next tab and I'm just going to read it because I was reading it as I was talking. Here, look, check this out. Here, Lucas recalls that all the ontological notions of the ancient Egyptians, such as Ka, Aku, Ku, Sau, and Ba, are found in Yoruba. These words exist verbatim in Wolof and Pule, as well be seen below. The belief in the existence of the guardian spirit but one aspect of Ka. Lucas expands for 414 pages on the study of these beliefs and discusses in details their identification Egyptian beliefs. He concludes by noting the existence of Yoruba hieroglyphics and cites several examples. The identity of the Egyptian and Yoruba pantheon alone would suffice to prove early contact. So Yoruba and the Egyptians has a lot of similarities, and they adapted possibly one another's culture. That's pretty interesting. Um, Let me go to because this next tab is yeah. See, so it just keeps talking about the yeah. See, it just keeps talking about the relationship between Egyptian and um the Yoruba. That's pretty cool. I don't know. I did not remember that, but I won't forget it now. That's actually interesting. So the Yoruba and the Egyptians have some similarities. That's pretty cool. That's actually pretty cool. Now I'll remember that. Dang, it's a lot of pictures in here that I did on here. I'm gonna have to go through each one of these pictures and see if I can find them online and see if I can share them um, on X because sometimes you can get in trouble for sharing that stuff. Um, all right, so I guess this. No, that's a whole page. That's a whole page. It's on the top. Let's see. Yeah, we almost done anyway. So okay, so what layman or Martian descending on Earth could have guessed that Greece is the distant mother of modern American technique and of Western civilization in its most refined and profound aspects? Western Europe has experienced the same regression during the Middle Ages. All the knowledge of antiquity took refuge in a few monasteries where it vegetated until the Carolingian Renaissance with the Lucian 735 to 805 or 804 technique were lost architectural knowledge and know-how in particular. Not only had they forgotten everything about ancient science, they could not even erect the least complicated building. We can get an idea of the regression by comparing the Ptolemaic map showing the geographical knowledge of antiquity with that of modern ages for the same Mediterranean area. That's interesting. But everybody knows that you always get up to a point where you're good at something and then boom. So I talk about this a lot right here. There was no Cro-Magnon man in sub-Saharan Africa. At an interview that Professor Vallau was kind enough to grant me at the Paris Institute of Human Paleontology, this scientist was categorical. Then there's a lot of pictures. Then I gotta categorical about this. Only the Boksop man, Transvaal province, South Africa, was for a time considered as a Cro-Magnoid, having affinities with the Bushmen. But this opinion was later abandoned by partitions. Cornevin unfortunately continues to confuse Grimaldi man, a Negroid with marked prognathism and broad nose with Cro-Magnon man, who is not at all prognathous, but presents in hypertrophic fashion typical European traits, thin lips, prominent chin, narrow nose. There is a reason to re-examine the document. I just got confused about this one, and I say that because I've read that the Cro-Magnon came from Africa. It's not even Cro-Magnon anymore. Let me see. It's like early here. I'm gonna bring it up because I don't want any things, but it's not even called Cro-Magnon anymore. I was looking this up because it was kind of interesting when I first read this book. Um, I I looked this up, and what I read was that it's a European early modern humans. That's what they're called. It's I think it's like EEHM or something like that. Yeah, right here. European early modern humans. That's what they said right there, right? And then I'm trying to find that article that I found on it. Yeah. Uh I do have Britannica, so I do use Britannica a lot. Um you can see in the background. You can see in the background my books. I'm trying. There we go. All right, so let me bring it up real quick. Because this is actually interesting. So there we go. So let's make it bigger. Oh man, I don't want it that big. There we go. So I typed in Africa just to see, just to control F just to see, and it talks about. Oh, that's the. There we go. Hold on. Why did it go all the way down there? Okay, here we go. Yeah, so there are a population of Homo sapiens, right? 40,000 to 10,000 years ago. Um, and they were about 5 feet 5 inches. Uh, they're the first humans. Cro-Magnons were the first humans to have a prominent chin. Okay, so when I read stuff like that, that means that the idea of a human just changed because uh, it says humans to have a prominent chin. So obviously there were humans before that, right? We understand that. And then this is actually interesting right here. There's our Grenatian culture. I have to get into that a little later, but not today. But yeah, there we go. So it is difficult to determine how long the Cro-Magnons lasted and what happened to them. Presumably, they were gradually absorbed into the European populations that came later. So, but it's just so interesting to know that they're called the early European humans. Um, uh, Let me find that article that talks about that too, because that was actually um, see, I didn't. I should have went through it. But anyway, let me finish these tabs up because I can find it in a minute. But what's so interesting is that they say that these Cro-Magnon people, some of them said they come from Africa, and his argument is he doesn't necessarily agree with that. And then they use the nose as a way to determine people. Oh, that was actually the last tab. The rest of the tabs is in the notes. It's notes. Okay, so what I want people to understand is that I think some of the information in this book is good, and then I think some of it is just outdated because we have more information that's scientifically updated. And I just think that using the word black, I think that's more westernized thinking because of the simple fact from my studies, from my research, from my reading and understanding, is that it had to do is mostly identifying people here in America. In Africa, they just use their tribes and where they possibly came from. They didn't say, that black person there or that black person there. And also, black could have meant different things depending on the area and what is. And you got to just pay attention to context. I think this is a great book. Um, it gives you a side of things that why certain people say what they say, especially when you want to have arguments about somebody being Afrocentric. Um, they may be quoting somebody that, hey, this is what I learned it from, but yeah, this person wrote this book about it years ago. I think, like I said, I think my greatest strength is that I want to hear both sides of the story, and then I'm going to come to my own idea later on about what I believe or what I possibly believe or the many possibilities of things that I believe. And the reason why is because there's so many different things that if you once you start grabbing enough books and grabbing enough information, it's hard to sit there and say, yo, I believe this because of this, that, and the third or whatever. It's it's really, for me, it's really hard. Um, you know, I can't tell you what I believe without understanding the many different arguments behind it. So, this was the African Origins of Civilization, Myth or Reality by Sheikh Anta Diop. The next book that I'm going to be going over. So the next few books are actually going to be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the next 6 books are going to be mainly about African history, which I should have did these in Black History Month, but I just have a list of all the books that I'm going through. That list is on my website. So it's all the books that I'm going through that I've
pretty much done researching on, and I think I have a great uh, concept of what I've learned in it, and now I'm just going over them just for a refresher course. So the next one is the destruction of Black civilization: great issues of a race from 4500 BC to 2000 AD by Chancellor Williams. That's what that'll be, the next book right there. And then the next few books will be mostly all from this guy that is called Dr. Supreme Understanding. And I would be telling you exactly what I've learned from his books and what I felt like he could have done better on, and, portrayed himself better on. But that will come in the future. So just look out for the next one. I'm going to probably be getting back to these. I had to cancel a lot of these lives because of my allergies was acting up, but I think I'm pretty good now. So and also I'm going boots on ground tomorrow to an actual African American museum in Savannah. So I almost forgot all about that. I'm going down there. I'm going to boots on the ground to do a video on there. Tonight I'm going to be working on another video with music behind it, because I'm using Suno to help me put this stuff in musical terms, because I feel like music will, if it's a catchy tune and people like it, they'll sing it and they want to hear it, and they'll makes them remember stuff. And also you can tell your kids or hey, it's on my YouTube channel. You can tell them, hey, go to the section for a project or something. I got a good music section on there that's no curse words or anything like that. So yeah, just I'm trying to make it entertaining in some way. I might just get a distro kid account just so I can put it on there and have it entertaining. But like I always say, y'all, knowledge is power, and I'll see y'all later. And we're gonna do this again in the next few days.
Got a little hype now, can I let it die down? I remember days in the trench. Time to go hard in, time to go all in, time to get my all to this shit. Panamera maxed out, first class flights out Atlantic to Pacific, yeah, it's lit.